Hello everyone and welcome back to the Organic Reaction Mechanism made easy. If you are targeting the CSIR NET, GET or IITJam, you already know that the substitution reactions are the bread and butter of the organic chemistry, and you should know that at the advanced level. So we are now breaking down the SN1 reaction mechanism. So here we are starting with the SN1 reaction mechanism. And we are not just seeing its mechanism, we will see all the things that are necessary for you, like the carbocation stability and the stereochemistry that examiners loves to test. So firstly, see, decode the name SN1. SN1. S means the substitution, N means the nucleophilic, means here is actually the substitution by the nucleophile, means the attack is made by the nucleophile and it is a substitution reaction. And what is the meaning of one? One means the unimolecular. Unimolecular means the rate of the reaction depends only on the concentration of the one substrate molecules, that is the halide. It does not depend upon the concentration of the nucleophile. Okay, means to say is that the speed of the reaction depends only on the concentration of the alkyl halide and the nucleophile plays no role in the rate determining step. It is just waiting in the wings. Now, as the rate depends upon the concentration of the halides, only the one molecule of the substrate, that means the reaction happens in the two steps. What is the two-step mechanism? Means to say is that firstly, this is the RX bond that undergoes the hydrolytic cleavage. Okay, and as a result, you are getting a carbocation and X will go with its electron pair. So you are getting X minus. This is the first step and this will be the rate determining step because it is a slow step. So it determines the rate of the reaction. It is called rate determining step. And in the second step, this R plus will be attacked by the nucleophile and then you are getting the molecule, the product. And this step is fast, so it does not decides the rate of the reaction. Means to say is that the rate of the reaction is decided by the first step. So you are saying that there is only one molecule in the first step, so the overall rate is determined only by the concentration of the substrate, that is the driver. So means to say is that here our nucleophile is the weapon that is attacking and that is attacking on a carbocation, that is your target. Okay, so we are dealing here with the tertiary butyl carbocation. We are seeing its chemistry. See here, this is your tertiary butyl bromide. Now what you are seeing, the bond is undergoing the hydrolytic cleavage in the first step, so you are getting this type of the carbocation. Okay, and this is the bromine. Now the golden rule. Arrow shows the movement of the electrons, not the atom. This thing I have told you. And a double-handed arrow like this. This is a double-headed arrow. This shows the movement of an electron pair. Means the both electrons of the electron pair are going towards the bromine. So you are getting the Br minus. Now what are left with the carbocation intermediate? This is the VIP of the SN1 reaction. See here, this is your carbocation. The stability of this carbocation entirely dictates how fast the reaction goes. A tertiary carbocation is highly stabilized by the hyperconjugation and the inductive effect of the alkyl groups. That makes the prime candidate for the SN1 mechanism. So, this tertiary carbocation that you are seeing here, this is highly stable. Okay, this is highly stable and it can easily be attacked by the nucleophile. So this undergoes always the SN1 reaction mechanism. Now let's see the geometry of this. The intermediate and its hidden electrons. Now what happens in the step 2? You have seen that the nucleophile will attack on this carbocation and your nucleophile is this H2O. Okay, this H2O will provide the OH minus and these are the electron pairs of the oxygen that will make an attack. Okay, now look at the carbocation. The carbocation you are seeing is sp2 hybridized, so obviously it is trigonal planar in geometry. Alright, when you see a trigonal planar geometry, what happens? All the groups are in the same plane you are seeing and there is a vacant p orbital. Its slopes are above and below the plane. Means to say is that the molecule is planar and now there is the probability of attack from the both side. Means this lone pair can attack either on this side, means this nucleophile can attack on this side, or it can also attack from this side. Let's see this one. See here, means there is the 50% probability that there is the top face attack and there is 50% probability that there is bottom face attack. This is a achiral molecule. But if you take a chiral center, then this dual-sided attack will lead to the racemization. Means you can get a racemic mixture of the two enantiomers. However, and this is a crucial high-level point of competitive exams, that what happens in most of the cases, if you see in the higher level, what happens, the leaving group is present on the top side. So there is a little probability, only a little, that the backside attack is more. So there is a very little excess of the inverted product. Okay, so that is a high level talk. Okay, but in general we say that there is 50-50 percentage of formation of both the products. See here, one product you are getting in the same manner, means you are getting same type of the configuration, that is called the retention of the configuration. Means from the front side the OH has been attacked, the nucleophile is attacking from the same side, but if it is attacking from the below side, means opposite side, you are getting the inversion of configuration, means you are getting 1:1 ratio of the isomers. Let's see a big picture of the energy profile. See here, in this diagram, you are seeing two humps. Means there are two transition states. When you are seeing two humps, means there are two transition states. That means the reaction is happening actually in the two steps. The first activation energy you are seeing, this EA1, is higher. It is very much higher. Why? Because the vacuum of the bonds will take the energy. And there is a valley right here. See here, this is the valley that is showing the stable carbocation. You know that the tertiary butyl carbocation is highly stable, so you are getting it at a very low energy. But if it is a primary carbocation or a secondary cation, then this may be at somewhat higher energy. Let's see the another hump, that is at this EA2. This is a little activation energy. Why this is small? Because the opposite charges are obviously attacking each other and the formation of new bond will release the energy. So this activation energy is very small. So means to say is that EA1 is always very much higher than the EA2. And you know what is the reason. Next thing is the CSIR NET Pro tip, the rearrangement trap. One important thing you should note here for the CSIR NET exam, especially for the GATE exam, especially. See here, suppose you have given 1 degree carbocation and you have given 2 degree carbocation, then you cannot directly make an attack on this of the nucleophile. You cannot make an attack of the nucleophile in this manner. This is wrong. Why this is wrong? Because actually these carbocations has the tendency to undergo rearrangement to the more stable form. Means the primary will change to secondary. Secondary will change to tertiary. Means they will shift toward the more stable side. Because we know everything in the nature has a tendency to go toward the stability. So they will go toward the stability. They will undergo the 1,2-hydride shift or the 1,2-methyl shift. If you want to know the 1,2-hydride shift or 1,2-methyl shift in a more better way, you can watch our video of the Wagner-Meerwan rearrangement, in which I have told you all the things in a very basic level. So you can see that I am giving you the link here. So see that one. Okay, so what you are seeing here, that the 1,2-hydride shift changes the secondary carbocation to more stable tertiary carbocation, and then the nucleophile will attack at that site. So now, what's the next thing? After the SN1 mechanism, you have seen the SN1 mechanism. Okay, but there is a deep contrast of this with the SN2 mechanism. And look at how the solvent choices. Means if you take a polar protic solvent, you get the SN1 mechanism. And if you see the polar aprotic solvent, you get the SN2 mechanism. How this happens? how this solvent choices forces a reaction down the SN1 or SN2 path. If you want to see that, find in the next video. Okay, and if you want to get the notifications, please subscribe the channel and please share this video with the other students so more and more students can take the benefits of these. Okay, and you will get the more videos obviously if we are getting the more views. So please make more shares, more comments and more likes. Thank you.